So now I'm going to go into the curriculum and volunteer training quality framework. So, like I said, introduction to curriculum, VTQ. So our curriculum, like I just said, we have a new curriculum this year, and Mimi spoke quite eloquently about that earlier as well. And it's a skills-based curriculum. So the idea is that we want teens not just to know the health content, but to know how to go out and apply it to their own lives. So they need to learn how to reflect so they can figure out what sort of decision they're going to make. It's not good enough just to know how to correctly open and use a condom effectively if you don't know where to get a condom from or how to have that conversation with your partner. So we do now talk a lot about how to actually physically get to a clinic, what to expect from a conversation with a nurse practitioner, how to communicate to your partner, how to advocate for a friend. That's one of the major differences in our curriculum this year. And then this directly goes into the way the workshops are split up. So reflection unit, accessing resources, decision making, and communication advocacy. And through all those workshops, we have sexual health, mental health, and substances content information. Does anyone have any questions about this? No? Okay, cool. It's also student-centered. So you may notice through reading in your workshop, there's not a lot of time that you as an educator are standing up and lecturing the class. There's a lot of activities, you're facilitating, but a lot of the content of the actual workshop is generated through one-on-one discussions with their partners, group activities, and this aspect of the curriculum means that students are engaging in creating their own learning. They're not just there to receive knowledge from you as an educator, but they're there to engage with you, build a relationship, and find an impact through their own experiences. Okay, time for one more piece of trivia. What is the name of the sculpture on Ellis between the Pavlesi West Dorm and the Reg? Yes, in the back.
Nuclear energy?
Not quite. Anyone else? Come on, guys. Got one half of it. Yeah.
Nuclear fusion.
Okay, you're really close now. Any ideas? You might be able to guess it at this point. Yeah, what's your name? Kendall. No, that's what he said at the back. The nuclear part is right. Yeah.
Nuclear fission.
Yes, correct! And the bonus question, does anyone know who the sculptor was? I guess I went a little, scaled a little too hard. No? Okay, well, in case anyone ever asked you this question again, it was... Oops. Well, no. It's Henry Moore! And it was commemorated, I spent a lot of time on the Wikipedia page to make this stuff, so. If you have any more questions about what this commemorated, feel free to ask me after this presentation and I can fill you in. So, our volunteer training quality framework. I know you can't read this, so we will go into this in a couple slides. But essentially, this is what Peer Health Exchange uses to try and train you as volunteers to be the best possible teachers in the classroom. And it's something that's rolled out nationally. We tweak it a little bit to make it more like applicable to Chicago. But in the middle, you can see care and high expectations. So the 4 areas that we focus on in the trainings that you guys do in your workshop group meetings ultimately want you to focus on caring for the students and having high expectations for them and yourselves as volunteers. So if you look in your curriculum, you'll have these volunteer training quality tags. So the idea was that we wanted you to be able to see, what you're doing in your LC or your workshop group meeting as connected to what you're teaching in the classroom. Because if I, tell you a bunch of random things, and you don't know how it applies, and you try and teach it with your lessons, it's not going to make sense. So these are these little tags that are in your volunteer training manual and also parts of your curriculum about how the trainings align to the VTQ. So professionalism, classroom environment, cultural competency, and instruction. And when we talk about the teaching skills evaluation at the retreat next week, or tomorrow, we will also be going more over these. These actually correspond directly to the teaching skills evaluation form. Oh my god, I'm just not good at scrolling. Okay, can someone read for me the definition of classroom environment? Yeah, what's your name?
Ione.
Ione.
How an educator establishes and maintains a learning climate that promotes deep student engagement.
Thank you. So, does someone maybe have an example of this? If you haven't taught before, that's okay. If you have an example from another experience or just an idea, you can feel free to share as well. Yeah, Victoria.
Like making sure when you like ask questions, you always like respond to what the students say in like a positive way and try to include what you say, what
Yeah.
they said.
Yeah, so you want the students to be able to feel that you value them
Yeah.
in your response. Anyone have another idea before we move on? Yeah, Leilani.
I think sort of, I guess in a nice way, requiring student involvement, so I think cold calling, make sure everyone's participating, we should really be engaged in the learning process.
Exactly, and cold calling is what will happen to you guys if you don't raise your hands to read the next definition. Instruction. Yes.
What an educator does to help students connect cognitively and emotionally with the content of the workshop.
Exactly. Could I have someone give an example of this? Yeah.
Well, when you give instructions for an activity, like checking to make sure that like everyone understood and like repeating like each time they have and making sure that everyone is engaged.
Exactly. So if you're asking students to do something, you want to make sure they know what they're doing because they're not going to be able to engage with what you're trying to teach them if they don't know what's going on. That's why checks for understanding, which Maya, right? Okay. Just mentioned, are so important. Cultural competency. Yeah. Okay.
How an educator displays an awareness of and responsiveness to culture and context when engaging with students.
Great. Can someone give me an example of what this might look like? Yeah, no.
Instead of saying something along the lines of, oh, you can talk to your parents about birth control, maybe understand that some kids are coming from a household where that's not a relationship they're comfortable sharing with their parents.
Yeah, exactly. So using inclusive language, talking about different options. This is something we're going to go into a lot more in a longer training tomorrow. But a lot of it is about building self-awareness and making sure you're using language that acknowledges there may be difference in the room from what you are experiencing and what your students are experiencing, and making sure not to isolate anybody with your word choice. Professionalism. Yeah, Leilani.
How an educator embodies his or her role and responsibilities before, during, and after the workshop.
Great. Can someone give me an example of how you might display professionalism when you're going to teach a workshop? Yeah, Steph.
It's always important to make sure that you introduce yourself to the teacher and you're on good terms with them.
Definitely. You want to get there early so you have time to introduce yourself to the teacher. You want to make sure you dress appropriately. So that means you are wearing, essentially you don't have to dress business casual per se, but you want to be wearing your PhD t-shirt. Essentially you could wear exactly what I'm wearing, but no leggings. You don't want to wear really baggy clothes. You don't want to wear skirts that are too short, shorts that are too short. You want to dress like you're going to a high school, basically. And also for some of our schools, you will need to wear khaki pants. That's actually only one, Chicago Military Academy. So you want to make sure that the way you're dressed respects the environment that you're going into. As well as after the workshop, you want to say thank you to the class, you want to thank the host teacher, and if you have time, answer any student questions that may come up. So this is a very confusing chart that I don't expect you to understand, but essentially this shows how the trainings that we have coming up this year reflect the trainings that we're undergoing today and tomorrow in the volunteer training retreat. So this is something, if you're interested, I can share with you, but essentially the idea is that everything that you do in your workshop group is going to align to a skill that you get introduced to either today or tomorrow, and will help you become a better teacher in the classroom. So ultimately, we want you guys to come from this training ready to bungee jump. No, ready to be excited and also to be ready to grow as a volunteer. So now we are going to break for dinner, which don't